Good Tuesday evening, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here with Live Weather Impact. Boy, we've got a lot to talk about. Even though there's not much weather going on locally, there's still a lot to talk about because we've got record heat, we've got fire danger, we've got drought, we've got national stuff going on, we've got rocket launches, all kinds of cool stuff we'll be talking about. But let's start local first. For folks that missed our forecast on linear, we'll give you an update here. We'll take a look outside, Dallas camera, gorgeous view. No real rain clouds out there. That's a lot of cirrus deck and high-level clouds, which we had some lenticular clouds in the mountains we'll show you coming up in a minute. You see a little batch of clouds moving through here at sunset, which, by the way, we're getting close to an 8 p.m. sunset, 7:55 tonight. So very soon we will have our first 8 p.m. sunset since I think it'd go back to October, last time we had one. So it's been a while, September, October time frame. Temperature-wise, pretty warm out there, mid-80s. It was toasty today. Don't have to tell you, it's been way above average. Our average high is in the low 70s now. Seeing 80s is pretty crazy, but it gets a lot hotter, trust me, coming up. Today's high was 86, only 3 off the record. Mid-80s right now, pretty warm out there tonight. Not much of a cool down. We should be about 48, 49. We're going to be closer to 60, 61. So pretty warm. And then tomorrow, possibly our first 90-degree day of the year. I think that's a good chance because we've been tacking on about 3 degrees a day. So this will be pretty close to that tomorrow, especially starting near 60. And this will be a record high. The record high tomorrow is 89. So seems pretty doable to me. The thing that's nice about this, if this was midsummer and we weren't in a drought, I probably would be like, this is great weather because it's a dry heat. But the problem is, I actually would love to get some humidity now. If we're going to be 90 in April, let's just get some humidity so we get some thunderstorms. We'd love to get some thunderstorms. This is our severe weather season, though we don't want to see that. We'll be talking about that as well in the Midwest. Just a chance of rain would be great. So if you're wondering why there's not many storms or rain with this heat, it's because there's no humidity. Humidity is really a bigger feeding mechanism for thunderstorms than just the heat. So we have high fire danger. It's elevated today. It'll be elevated tomorrow. This will be an ongoing issue. We're seeing more fire restrictions in the national forest in North Carolina. So these are all compounding effects here with the heat, the drought, and fire danger. I mean, they're all connected here. And speaking of the heat, record heat this week, midsummer feel here, low 90s the next 4 days. 3 records possible, with one that's likely not going to happen. That's going to be Friday. That Saturday one could be a tie. And again, this is pretty unprecedented for April. We don't normally have 90 in April very often. It's been, I think I looked yesterday, it's been 10 years? Maybe 16 years, excuse me. It's 2010 the last time. I had to think 2010 was the last time we had a 90 in the month of April. So 90 alone is rare for April. 4 in a row, really rare. So pretty big heat. So we'll talk about this severe weather. We're going to have a live shot coming up from Iowa. Active weather there. This is where you expect to see severe weather, but normally what happens is when the severe weather starts in the middle of the country, it shifts our way. So in 3 days, this would be over us, and we talk about storm chances and rain. It's just not heading our way. It kind of falls apart. So this kind of gives you the idea of like why we're seeing a persistent pattern and the same reason they're seeing a persistent storm pattern, because the ridge of high pressure over the southeast is keeping the ring of fire, we call it, anchored over the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley. Speaking of ring of fire, you can almost see where the ridge of high pressure is. I mean, without even, I'll draw it, but you can see there's the ridge. And when we talk about ring of fire, all the showers and storms go around a ring around this ridge of high pressure. You could see we're bone dry for the next 7 days. Not that, I think we could see a shower maybe at one point this weekend, but it's not going to amount to anything. And you'll look at our future cast here. I'll stop it on Sunday. This is our best chance of rain in the next 10 days. Let me repeat that. This is our best chance of rain in the next 10 days. And it looks like a minuscule amount. 10, 20% chance, maybe, all the way through the middle of next week, bone dry. Hopefully, we'll see this pattern break down maybe by next weekend. The other thing about the dry pattern, it just leads to pollen everywhere. Now, we're kind of over the hump of the worst of the pollen, but we're not done. We're still in the peak of the pollen season. So while the pine pollen, the dust, the yellow dust, is finally kind of fading just a hint, it's still out there. I see it on my car. It's just not as thick. But the other pollens are still relatively high to very high. So pine, oak, and cedar. And pine is the messy one, but oak and cedar, that's the allergens. Those are the ones that are going to make you suffer. So here's a look at your Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. 4 days in the 90s, low 90s at that. Morning lows in the 60s. That should tell you how dry it is. Here comes that front on Sunday. 20%. Yay. Some rain, but it's not very big. It cools us back to normal next week for a few days, 70s and 40s. That's actually average. But then by the end of the week, the heat starts to build once again. We see temperatures back in the mid-80s. But just look at this 10-day forecast. I mean, there's only one day with a rain chance, and it's 20%. So there's a really good chance that a lot of our area over the next 10 days, doesn't mean everybody, but a good chunk will be bone dry. And the drought monitor comes out on Thursday. The data goes Tuesday to Tuesday, so technically it ends today. We have not seen rain in that Tuesday to Tuesday time frame. We're going to be talking a lot more about this over the coming week, and next week we're going to have a whole show dedicated to drought talk. The drought is getting worse, folks. As we start planting crops, we're now in that growing season. Farmers are trying to put crops in the ground. Water restrictions are going to raise their ugly heads. We're going to see a lot of issues coming up here in the next 7 days. So stick around. We'll talk more about severe weather, the rocket launch this morning that many of you saw, and we'll talk about lenticular clouds coming up after the break.
Weather Impact Live with Brad Panovich is sponsored by Moisture Lock, crawl space, basement, and foundation repair experts serving the Carolinas since 1988.
Tired of all this rain? Does your yard look like a swamp after it rains? Hi, I'm Greg Doggett with Moisture Lock, Charlotte's premier waterproofing and foundation repair company. The longer water sits, the softer soil will become. This can cause foundation issues. If you're having drainage issues, contact Moisture Lock. We'll get the water away from your home and out of your yard.
Moisture Lock, stabilize, enhance, protect.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Tim Buckley joins me, as always, on this Tuesday. Tim, I think the heat, the drought, big stories for us, fire danger, a lot of things going on locally, but we're going to start with what's happening in the middle of the country because it's not completely unconnected, right, Tim? We've got this ridge of high pressure over us, and on the west and northwest side of this ridge, it's going crazy in the Midwest again today. They've got severe weather everywhere for the second day in a row, and it feels like this is, if we're stuck in a rut with dry, hot weather, they're stuck in the opposite rut of stormy, wet weather, and it's really been crazy.
And we might be doing the same thing tomorrow. Because, like you said, this is a weather pattern that's kind of slammed on the brakes. And we see this sometimes. And when this happens, when you have a weather pattern that's kind of stuck, so to speak, you tend to get bad impacts. In this case, bad impacts for us because we can't get any rain and we need it. And on the other side of things, you're getting the rain and the storms to hit the same places over and over. So severe weather is a problem, damage is a problem, and possibly even some flooding, too. I saw all of Michigan basically is under a flood watch. So we can talk about the severe storms, we can talk about the rain, but all of this is stuff that we don't have and aren't going to have for a while.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Michigan because I still have a lot of connections up there. My second job in TV was in Traverse City, and I follow a bunch of Mets up there still. And I've been watching a lot of the footage out there. You're right. There's so much flooding going on. They had the bad combo of getting all this rain, and they had all the snow melt, from the winter. And so they've had this double whammy. And one of the places I used to go salmon fishing, the Tippy Dam, they had a flash flood warning because the dam was going to fail. Sheboygan was another area, which is in the Upper Peninsula. That could see. It's on the Wisconsin Michigan border there in the UP. They had a dam that was close to failure. You're right. There's just been a ton of rain up there, and we can't buy a raindrop. And then you see all the severe weather. Once again today, we're seeing live feeds coming out of our Iowa stations of tornadoes. I'm looking at the radar there, and there's like 2 tornado warnings right now, one in northeast Iowa, one in southern Wisconsin, 3 in southern Wisconsin. So we're kind of in that Quad Cities area, if you're familiar with that. The Dubuque, Iowa, Davenport, Moline area. That's kind of that area right there on the border of Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Just an active day, and you see a lot of chasers out there as well. Again, today, Tim, a lot of supercells. You're seeing a lot of big hailers. The thing, for folks watching this online, you see the cells are all kind of individuals. They're not lines. They're kind of all these little supercells, and pretty significant. There's a good view there on your radar. You see them all. And yeah, Tim, another day of these really active supercells. It looks like right on that boundary where there's cold air north, warm air south. It's almost like a stalled front or warm front, but kind of in the same area that we had in Wisconsin today was in Minnesota yesterday.
It hasn't moved much, and the forcing is kind of the same. You have that warm front, and right even along even the north side of the warm front, a lot of these storms are just kind of riding, and they're getting a lot of spin. You get that spin in the atmosphere when you have different directions or different speeds of the wind. We call it wind shear, and there's a whole bunch of that up there. There's often a lot of that in the springtime, which is why we tend to have worse severe weather outbreaks in the spring than we do in the summertime.
Yeah.
The summer has more heat and humidity, but the springtime has more of the twisting winds. And we're seeing that quite a bit right now. I haven't been zeroed in on all of these storms throughout the day, Brad. Have we had any bad damage or bad tornadoes, touching down necessarily, or we're still kind of watching them in motion at this time?
Yeah, I know there's been a couple confirmed touchdowns. I haven't seen damage today. I'm also seeing giant hail reports. We're getting more baseball-sized hail reports out of these. And the video you're seeing is from our CNN affiliate, KGNA. That's their storm tracker, right? Is that right, James? Or is that just
I would normally have our locator on it to tell you exactly where it is, but all of the action here is kind of at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Where you can kind of see the impact to the ground. Obviously, the visibility is a problem in the top half of the screen, but you can kind of get an idea of the winds there with the rain kind of pummeling them. And I do think we saw some hail on this feed a little bit earlier. So I'll keep a close eye on this from the producer pod here as we try to figure out exactly which cell they're chasing. But as Tim's showing you on the screen, we've had storms with hail throughout the day.
Yeah, looking at the radar, it looks like there's a bunch of chasers, and just based on the same kind of views, looks like this storm near Manchester. You'll see the individual people there. Those are all storm chasers. That's lightning data. And there's definitely, I don't know. That's a tough place to be chasing. Look at the visibility, Tim. That having chased myself, that is not a location you want to be in because you can't see it. There could be a tornado right there and you wouldn't even see it. They're kind of in what we call the bear's cage. Pretty bad situation when you get into the rain and hail cords. You can't see where the tornado is. And this is where, for a chaser, this is a dangerous spot to be in right here.
You really can't tell. It's even hard to tell what we're looking at in the far ground. It almost looks like you're next to like a lake or something. I don't think that's the case, but definitely difficult to see, and you can just tell how the wind is screaming out there. They're in the right spot for the wind, but I hope that they're on the safe side, away from the couplet, away from the rotation, and all of those things. These are probably going to be an issue if you're talking about where they're going. Madison, Wisconsin is in the threat zone. You got Milwaukee in the threat zone as you go into later on today. This is kind of a pretty populated part of the Midwest over here.
Yeah.
And it's an exercise too, where we talked about maybe a little bit in when we were having our storm threat a couple weeks ago, how the SPC, the Storm Prediction Center folks, they're doing some new outlooks this year, and they're giving us a better idea of what type of intensity you might see in some of these storms. And what they were highlighting is that a lot of the tornadoes actually could be on the stronger side, not just on the weaker side. So there's a real threat when it comes to tornadoes in that area today, especially along the Illinois-Wisconsin state line. And talk about ominous. Look at that feed right there. That's pretty spooky.
Yeah, that was, we actually could see the base of the cloud there, and actually probably a little better view there. A lot of wind shear with this setup, and you're getting the storm mode of supercells for 2 days in a row, which is, ideal for unfortunately for large hail and violent tornadoes. I'm just looking at some of the couplets. Oh, man, there's a ton that are just, if you zoom in on the right side for folks watching, this is my radar feed. Look at those couplets. You've got 3 or 4 storms that are rotating back to back to back. So, and very muddled radar. There's a lot of lightning, a lot of hail and rain in these. So these are what we would refer to as HP supercells. They're high precipitation supercells, kind of typical for the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. In the plains, you tend to get more lower precipitation ones. The visibility tends to be a little better. This is kind of a mess. And thinking it's so early in the season, Tim, some of these dirt roads and these farms are just now planting their crops, so there's a lot of dust and mud that's going to be an issue for folks driving up there, because that's something you think about as a chaser. You're like, I got to have a paved road to be on, because if I want to get out of there, we could have an issue. But a couple days of this kind of severe weather threat in the middle of the country. You mentioned anything I've seen today. I haven't seen any damage video, but I know, James, we had some video from yesterday of some damage. We saw the big hail, but we also saw some significant tornado damage. Actually, down near Kansas, there was a little rogue couple of supercells. Tim, I don't know if you saw that after we got off our show last night. Down near Kansas City, there was like this small tornado watch, and there was 2 really potent supercells that produced some pretty violent tornadoes down there. And you could see from the video, these actually produced quite a bit of damage.
And that was not terribly expected either.
No.
It wasn't something that was really a point of emphasis throughout the day in the forecast. And the damage is pretty clear here. I mean, gosh, just tore the roof off of this.
Yeah.
It looks like a motel, and just went right through the fields, too. It's hard to tell if that's like a storm scar or if those are like dirt paths or anything. But either way, very, very strong weather. You see those campers just strewn about. One of them is in a pond, actually.
Wow.
So that goes to show you, gosh, that's tough to see. So these are storms that, have a history of doing damage. Even though it was yesterday, it's kind of still the same system a little bit for today.
Yeah.
And it goes to show you the forecast not always perfect. We're still not launching quite as many weather balloons as we were used to. There's not quite as much data going up every day, so I wonder if that's still a bit of an impact on the forecast. But it's another bad day out there, and it's just starting. Severe weather days tend to, they go late into the night, and so this is just the beginning of another day, not the end.
Yeah, and so Tim, let's connect this to us a little bit, because normally we'd be watching this setup in the middle of the country, and in like 2 to 3 days we'd see this over us, right? We'd be like, okay, this system's going to be over us by like say Thursday. And the problem is, so when we see this risk out in the middle of the country, normally the progression in April and May for us, all right, it moves a little further east. Well, it didn't move. And then it doesn't really move. So unlike our normal severe weather risk nationally, we'd watch those storms in the plains, and 2 or 3 days later, we'd say, okay, this is going to be our risk. But we've got this persistent southeast ridge, which you're showing clearly on your satellite and radar loop there. It's almost like a force field, Tim. It's just blocking, and nothing's getting down here, including moisture.
Yeah, you can think about it however you want to, whether it's a shield, a force field, if you're a football fan, you got a huge linebacker. He's like 400-pound guy right there in the middle. You're not going to go through him. You're going to go around him. And then that's just the way that the weather has to do it right now. So all of the showers and storms out in the Midwest, instead of coming in here, which they kind of usually want to do, they have to go up and around. And so this is going to be a persistent pattern for the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Northeast, New England, and the Southern Plains. But for us, we're on the opposite side of this, and unfortunately, our rainfall continues to just elude us. We're not going to see it. And we're basically getting sidestepped. And we talked about the opportunity of a rain shower coming up on Sunday. It's pretty much just an opportunity, like you were saying yesterday, Brad. I don't think it's a good chance at all. Maybe a little coating, but that would be about it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of scary. I show our 10-day forecast because I like to do the 10-day at 6 o'clock, and I have one chance of rain in 10 days, and it's like a 20% chance. And that day, probably half the people won't see a drop. So there's a good chance a lot of our viewers and listeners and watchers are going to go 10 days with little to no rain, which is just going to add to the horrible drought situation which seems to be unfolding here. I know you had a reporter go out and talk to some farmers today, and it's always kind of weird this time of year, Tim. I was looking at the crop progress report yesterday for the week. This is actually about the time that they would start putting the crops in, so it's kind of hard to tell what's going to happen. So you got to look at some of the winter crops like strawberries and winter wheat and stuff. But right now it seems like at least the dry weather is getting them time to put the plants in the ground, or the seed in this case. But it's really going to be the coming weeks and months that we'll probably see the impacts from the drought.
Yeah, what we were hearing from the farmers out there, they said the strawberry crop is actually doing great. They tend to like the heat. They like the dry weather, too. That's not really been a problem. But they are trying to put stuff in the ground. And one of the things that you'll hear when we roll this is they're saying the ground is actually too hard to kind of plant stuff. Oh. So they're having to water it just to be able to plant things. And it's creating some problems for them.
We're not getting any help from Mother Nature, but stuff like our corn that we plant in the field, like the ground's so hard right now, we're having a hard time even getting it planted. We're having to water the ground before we even plant it and try to get it wet, and then we're going to be spending a lot of money and a lot of time watering these crops.
This is probably the driest I've ever seen in a long, long time for middle of April. It's tough. Our pastures are drying up. Our cattle, we have a small beef cattle herd, and we've got choices to make. We've got to decide whether we're going to sell some calves.
And so you can kind of hear it in their voices. The farmers are nervous. They're having to deal with these problems. And as you get the crops in the ground, that's kind of your livelihood coming up later on throughout the season when you come up on the harvest. So really could be some problems, Brad. And they said that both of them mentioned their water supply is okay for right now. They both have ponds that they kind of use for that sort of thing. But if it keeps going, it might be a little bit worse. So we're already finding impacts. They're already happening.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I really worry about drought this time of year, Tim, because as you saw, farmers and us as humans, we start using more water this time of year because we're filling pools, we're washing our cars a lot, obviously, with pollen. We're starting to water our lawns and gardens. And when you have no moisture, you start seeing impacts like this. So this is from Monroe, North Carolina, which is in Union County, which is probably the hardest hit area in our neck of the woods, Tim. This is where the exceptional to extreme drought is kind of centered. That's their town water supply. Pond there. They have 3 little ponds. They use reservoirs for the city of Monroe, and they're under voluntary water restrictions right now, but I'll be curious. If we ask them, I bet they probably say they're going to start planning for, mandatory. And I think that's the next step, Tim, when we start seeing these thresholds. I saw our friends over at REL in Raleigh. They have I think it's Falls Creek Lake or whatever they use over there. They have a threshold. When it gets to like 240 feet elevation, they institute water restrictions. So there's kind of these thresholds that a lot of these water boards and water systems have. Once you get to a certain water level, they start enacting it. And I'm really curious, Tim, to see if we're going to start approaching that over the next week or two, especially as people are starting to use more water, including farmers and homeowners, as we're getting into this warm, dry stretch.
Yeah, it's that's the next step, right? That's where your mind goes, and drought really starts to become a topic when it impacts people. So if you can't water the yard, you can't fill the pool, you can't wash your car, all of those things, those are real impacts. We did talk to the city of Greensboro today, asked them, how are things going? They said they have plenty of water right now. They're not that worried about it just yet, but the longer it goes, maybe things would change. So it really does vary. Every town has a different supply and a different situation. And it's probably going to vary. But either way, the weather pattern long range still doesn't look good for where we need to get going, and we need about a foot of rain, so it's not great.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because today I updated our what do we need to end the drought graphic, and now I can't find it. I just updated. So here it is I picked the select cities for us. So Charlotte, we're over a foot in 1 month, Tim, but 3 months is now 19 inches. The scary part is Morganton in the western part of the state, 13.35 inches needed in a month, but 21.32. And the reason I look at Morganton, that's the headwaters for the Catawba River Basin for us. That's Lake James.
Sure.
So if they don't have enough rain up there, that eventually trickles down to Charlotte because our water supply comes from the Catawba River, Mountain Island Lake. So if they need a ton of water upstream, that just like floods, we get floods downstream when they get a ton of rain. When they don't get a lot of rain upstream, that affects our water supply. So that's kind of something to keep an eye on long term. I did want to quickly talk about this because we had some wild weather out west. As hot and dry as it is here in the east, Tim, this is a view in Colorado. They had snow. It's funny, Colorado could not buy snow all winter long, and now April. I want to say the Lake Tahoe, Truckee, California had their biggest snowfall of the season, and it was in April. It's been weird, but they had a 75 car pileup in Eisenhower Tunnel. This is on I-70 as you're going up to the mountain. I know this area well because if you're in Denver and you're going to go skiing like at Breckenridge or Steamboat or Aspen, you got to go through this tunnel. And when they get big snows, Tim, usually it's to get shut down because people don't have chains. But when you get an accident, now it shuts everything up. I've seen people stranded there overnight in snowstorms, but they have a big pile up in the tunnel there, and nobody can get through. So kind of crazy to see snow. But snow in April is not unheard of in the Front Range. It's actually kind of weird. Denver is like a really cool weather city. Their snowiest time of the year is fall and spring. It's not really winter.
I feel like nothing is unusual in Denver.
Yeah.
You can kind of do anything, anytime. And while their winter was super weird, this doesn't shock me a bit. I got a buddy who lives in Denver. I got to see what he's doing up there in the snow today. I guess it's only in the higher elevation, but they're not 80 anymore.
Yeah, it's weird there. Like they get 80 one day, the wind direction change, and there's a blizzard the next day. It probably is one of the wildest weather cities, the Front Range of the Rockies. And we have some of the similar things here, not as crazy, but it is a wild, wild weather market out there.